How to create type effects. How to create type effects. By the way, you can perform various operations on a type to change its appearance. For example, you can wrap type and convert type to shapes, or edge or drop shadow to type. And one of the easiest way to create type effects is to play the default text effects, actions that come with Photoshop on a type layers. And you can also access these effects by choosing text effects from the actions panel menu. And how to create type along or inside a path. How to create type along or inside a path. By the way, you can enter type that follows along the edge of a work path created by a pen or a shape tool. And when you enter type along a path, the type follows in the direction that anchor points were added to the path. And entering horizontal type on a path results in letters that are perpendicular to the baseline, and entering vertical type on a path results in text orientation parallel to the baseline. And you can also enter type inside a closed path, by the way. And in this case, however, the type is always oriented horizontally and with line breaks occurring wherever the type reaches path boundaries. And as you move a path or change its shape, related type conforms to the new path location or shape, like the next image now. This screenshot now explains for you horizontal and vertical type on an open path. And the next image, horizontal and vertical type on a closed path created by the shape tool. And how to enter type along a path. How to enter type along a path. We have steps. Step number 1. You should select the horizontal type tool firstly, or the vertical type tool. And after that, select the horizontal type mask tool, or the vertical type mask tool. Step number 2. Position the pointer so that the baseline indicator of the type tool and is on the path, and click. After you click, an insertion point appears on the path, like the next image. The next image explains for you the baseline indicator of the type tool in the left side, and in the right side the type tool with its baseline indicator on the path, with and without. And step number 3. Enter the type. Horizontal type appears along the path and perpendicular to the baseline, and the vertical type appears along the path and parallel to the baseline. And for more control over vertical alignment of type on a path, you can use the baseline shift option in the character panel. And for example, type a negative value in the baseline shift text box to lower the type. And how to move or flip type along a path. How to move or flip type along a path. You should select the direct selection tool firstly, or path selection tool, and position it over the type, and the pointer changes to an eye beam with an arrow. And to move text, and click and drag the type along the path. Be careful not to drag across the path. And to flip text to the other side of the path, you should click and drag the type across the path, like the next image now. The next image explains for you using the direct selection tool or path selection tool to move or flip type on a path, and to move type across a path without changing the direction of the type. You can use the baseline shift option in the character panel. For example, if you create a type that runs from left or right or to right across the top of the circle, you can actually enter a negative number in the baseline shift text box to drop the type so that it flows inside the top of the circle. How to enter type inside a closed path. How to enter type inside a closed path. We have steps. Step number 1. You should select the horizontal type tool firstly. Step number 2. Position the pointer inside the path. Number 3. When the type tool is surrounded by dashed parentheses, you should click to insert text. And after that, how to move a path with type. How to move a path with type. You should select the path selection tool firstly, or the move tool, and then click and drag the path to a new position. And if you use the path selection tool, you should to make sure that the pointer doesn't change to an one beam I-beam with an arrow, or you will move the type along the path. How to change the shape or of a path with type? How to change the shape of a path with type? We have two steps. Step number 1, you should select the direct selection tool firstly. Step number 2, click an anchor point on the path and use the handles to change the shape of the path. Wrap and unwrap type. Wrap and unwrap type. By the way, you can wrap type to create a special type effect. For example, you can wrap type in the shape of an ARC or a wave. The wrap style you select is an attribute of the type layer, and you can change a layer's wrap style at any time to change the overall shape of the wrap. And wrapping options give you precise control over the orientation and perspective of the wrap effect, by the way. And note here please now, by the way, you can wrap type layers that include focus bolt formatting, or that use fonts without outline data, such as bitmap fonts, like this image now. Example of type wrapped with fish style. And what about wrap type? Wrap type, we have steps. Number 1, select a type layer firstly. And number 2, select a type tool and click the wrap button in the options bar. Then choose type, then choose wrap text. And note here in this point please now, you can use the wrap command to wrap text in a type layer, and then choose edit, then choose transform path, then wrap. Step number 3, you have to choose a wrap style from the style pop-up menu. Step number 4, select the orientation of the wrap effect, horizontal or vertical. Step number 5, if desired, you should specify values for additional wrapping options. And you have two options here now. Bend to specify how much wrap is applied to the layer. And option 2, horizontal distortion of vertical distortion to apply perspective to the wrap. What about unwrap type? Unwrap type, we have 3 steps. You should select a type layer firstly that has wrapping applied to it. Step number 2, you should select a type tool and click the wrap button in the options bar. Or choose layers, then choose type, then choose wrap text. Step number 3, choose none from the style pop-up menu and then click OK. How to create a work path from type? How to create a work path from type? By the way, you can work with type characters as vector shapes by converting them to a work path. And a work path is a temporary path that appears in the paths panel and defines the outline of a shape. And after you create a work path from a type layer, you can save and manipulate it as you do any other path. And you can't edit characters, by the way, in the path as text. However, the original type layer remains intact and editable. And you should select a type layer and then choose type, then choose create work path. And note here please now, note and be careful, you can't, by the way, you can't create work paths from fonts that don't include outline data, such as bitmap fonts. How to convert type to shapes? By the way, when you convert type to shapes, the type layer is replaced, by the way, by a layer with a vector mask, and you can edit the vector mask and apply styles to the layer. However, you can't edit characters in the layers as text. And actually, you should to select a type layer and then choose type, then choose convert to shape. And do not here please now and be careful. By the way, you can't create shapes from fonts that don't include outline data, such as bitmap fonts. How to create a type selection border? By the way, when you use the horizontal type mask tool or vertical type mask tool, you create a selection in the shape of the type, and type selections appear on the active layer and can be moved, by the way, and copied and filed or stroked just like any other selection. We have steps. Step number 1, you should select the layer on which you want the selection to appear. And for best results, create the type selection border on a normal image layer and dot type layer. And if you want to fill or stroke the type selection border, you should create it on a new blank layer. Step number 2, you should select the horizontal type mask tool or the vertical type mask tool. Step number 3, you should select additional type options and enter type at a point or in a bounding box. And a red mask appears, by the way, over the active layer as you enter the type, and after you click the command button, the type selection border appears in the image on the active layer. By the way, how to add drop shadow to text. How to add a drop shadow to text. By the way, add a drop shadow to give depth to text in an image. We have steps. Step number 1. In the layers panel, you should select the layer containing the text to which you want to add a drop shadow. And step number 2, you should click the layer style button at the bottom of the layers panel and choose drop shadow from the list that appears. Step number 3, if possible, position the layer style dialog box so that you can see the layer and its drop shadow. Step number 4, adjust the setting to your liking, and you can change various aspects of the shadow, including the way it blends with the layer's silhouette and its opacity, and how much the underlying layers show through, and the angle of the light and its distance from the text or object. Step number 5, when you are satisfied with the drop shadow, then click OK. By the way, to use the same drop shadow setting on other layers, you should press Alt drag the drop shadow layer in the layers panel to the other layer, and when you release the mouse button, Photoshop, by the way, applies the drop shadow attributes to the layer. How to fill type with an image. By the way, you can fill type with an image by applying a clipping mask to an image layer placed above a type layer in the layers panel. We have steps again. Step number 1, you should open the file containing the image you want to use inside the text. Step number 2, you should select the horizontal type tool firstly or the vertical type tool in the toolbox. Step number 3, click the character tab to bring the character panel to the front, or if the panel isn't open, you should choose window firstly, then choose character. Step number 4, in the character panel, you should select the font and other type attributes for the text and large bold and thick letters work best. Step number 5, you should click an insertion point in the document window and type the desired text, and when you are satisfied with the text, you should press Ctrl Enter if you use Windows or Command Return if you use macOS. Step number 6, you should click the Layers tab to bring the Layers panel to the font, or if the panel isn't open, you should choose Windows and then choose Layers. Step number 7, optional. If the image layer is the background layer, double click the image layer in the layers panel firstly to convert it from a background layer into a regular layer. Note here please now, and be careful in this point. By the way, the background layers are locked and prevent you from moving them in the layers panel, and it's necessary to convert background layers to regular layers to unlock them. Step number 8, optional again. In the new layer dialog box, you can rename the layer, by the way, and then click OK to close the dialog box and convert the image layer. Step number 9, in the layers panel, you should drag the image layer so that it's immediately above the type layer. Step number 9, with the image layer selected, you should choose layer firstly, then create clipping mask. The image appears inside the text, by the way. Step number 11, you should select the move tool firstly, and then drag the image to adjust its placement within the text. And by the way, to move the text instead of the image, you should select the type layer in the layers panel and then use the move tool to move the text. Thank you.